And a TGIF, everyone. Welcome into the First Call podcast for First Bet and Express Bet. He's Jeff Siegel. I'm Jeremy Plonk. We will handicap some stakes races for this coming weekend. A big weekend in racing. It's closing weekend at Laurel Park in Maryland. We've got opening day in Oklahoma City at Remington Park. So two of my favorite tracks are kind of opening and closing this weekend. Of course, the Timonium State Fair will be next up on the Maryland scene. But the big talk this time of year, of course, is Saratoga and Del Mar. We've got the Alabama and the Del Mar Oaks. Jeff, 3-year-old filly's going to be in the spotlight, one on the dirt, one on the turf this weekend.
Really like a horse in the Alabama. We'll talk about that when we get to it. But Woodbine having some exceptional racing this weekend, obviously, and the King's Plate.
Yes.
It's always their biggest race. Sometimes you get a good one. Sometimes, of course, it's restricted to Canadian bred, so you never know what you can get. But this looks competitive. And I actually mentioned I like the Alabama at Saratoga, but I also really like the Lake Placid. So I'm going to be diving in at Saratoga this weekend aggressively.
Good.
Assume that we have good weather. And I checked the weather. I even went that far. And it looks like it's going to be great there. So I'm really looking forward to Saratoga. We'll talk about those two races during this program.
Weather looked good Thursday for 5 or 6 races too. So who knows? It's Saratoga. We keep our fingers crossed and our umbrellas close when we talk about Saratoga. Let's look at our lineup of races for those of you watching on YouTube or on X. Be sure to like, send this out, put comments in the section, help grow the audience. For those of you listening on our traditional audio channels, here are the 8 races Jeff and I will handicap over the next half hour or so. We'll go to Monmouth for the Island Stakes. Miler's going at it there. To Woodbine for King's Plate Day, where the Bold Venture, the King Edward, the Catch a Glimpse, and the King's Plate make up a quartet of stakes races on that big program. At Saratoga, Jeff mentioned the Lake Placid and the Alabama. And to Del Mar, we go for the Del Mar Oaks. A lot of great promotions this weekend with First Bet and Express Bet. There are 2 million first rewards points on the line if you hit the pick 5, the middle pick 5. Woodbine on Saturday. That's races 6 through 10. Again, you'll split your share, not only your pari-mutuel winnings, but your share of 2 million first rewards points. The hit and split at Woodbine for the middle pick 5 coming up on Saturday. Also, a lot of great $10 money back special races this weekend, including the Alabama. 2 races a day at Saratoga have that $10 money back special designation. Be sure in the First Bet app to check under the promos tab, or if you're on the desktop site, be sure to check out the promos at Express Bet, because opt into the promotions. Those $10 money back specials mean if your horses run second or third, you get up to $10 of your bet back in form of wagering credit. So be sure to take advantage of those. 2 races each day at Saratoga. And then we've got those for harness coming up this weekend as well. Those money back specials. Big day at Pocono Downs on Saturday. We've got $10 money back specials on those races. And then the big one, the Gold Cup and Saucer. This is like theater meets harness. If you've never seen this race, Saturday night at Red Shore, Charlottetown, on Prince Edward Island, far northeast in North America, but the Gold Cup and Saucer is an event. The horses come out in a spotlight. The track announcers like WWE. It's a pretty insane event. The crowd's all on top of each other. Al Smagli has got a video set for that, and he'll have picks for you as well. But we've got that $10 money back special going through the races at Red Shore, Charlottetown, also coming up on Saturday night. So a lot of fun. I mean, that race, if you think like thoroughbreds are like stiff and lame and stodgy and old school in the way we promote the game, check out that race Saturday night from Charlottetown in harness. You'll say, hey, that's pretty hip way of doing things. And the crowd really responds to it, Jeff. They go nuts.
I like the way you describe thoroughbred racing. It sounds like you believe we are old and stodgy and the rest of that.
We
are.
we are rather buttoned up in the way we present things.
We are.
I mean, best dressed contests and things like that. They're not worried about how you're dressed at Charlottetown Saturday night. They're there to have fun. So check that out, the Gold Cup and Saucer. Okay, let's go to Monmouth Park on Saturday for the Isla. There'll be a lot of beach shorts and tank tops there on Saturday. Mile and 16 for the Island. Look, this isn't a race that it used to be. It's a $250,000 grade 3. When you go back and look at the history of the Island, Jeff, the 2 jockeys that have won this race the most, 4-time winners, Eddie Arcaro and Bill Shoemaker. That tells you we're not in that era right now with the Island, a race that was won by Nashua and Spectacular Bid and Bold Ruler. More recently, Ghost Zapper and Skip Away. But this race is trying to kind of find its way maybe as a Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile prep these days. It is a mile and a 16 for the Island. Field of 6 is entered in this one. How do you see it?
Well, Richard Mandela doesn't ship that often.
No.
But he's got some Sanador here. This horse was also entered, I believe it was the San Diego earlier at Del Mar, and scratched off a short entries, and that's usually a negative sign. But I don't even think he intended to run. I think he was just asked to enter to fill up the card, or at least the race. Here he is breezing. He looked really good here. This was a work very late July, and he's going to go a minute flat. He's generally a horse that wants to be on or near the lead. He certainly was that way when he was in his native Argentina. And I hope they let him roll out of there and get the lead in a race that doesn't have a lot of pace. But the way he's breezing here, a minute flat, last quarter and 23 and change, tells me that he is spot on. Fourth in the Gold Cup in his most recent start, but that was back in May. So he's fresh. I think he'll fire fresh. I think he'll, from that outside draw, I think they'll let him roll out of there and get to the front. Again, looking at the pace here, doesn't look that strong, and he makes the lead. He's tough to beat. So he's 5-2. Mike Smith going back there to ride him. I don't think he'd be flying cross country unless he believes, or at least Richard believes, that he's spot on. I think Senator outclasses the field based on his narrow miss in the big cap 2 races back.
Yeah, my one friend used to tell me that guys like that don't ship the shine shoes. They're not going in to make a couple nickels. Right. They're going in for the money. So Mike Smith aboard Subsanador. You got Il Miracolo in that race, the morning line favorite, a horse who won the Ghost Sapper 2 starts back at Gulfstream, but hasn't run since May. Be the first time back for that Antonio Sano trainee, getting Paco Lopez to ride. Instant Coffee's in there, a horse now with his 3rd trainer, was on the Derby Trail back in 2022 with Brad Cox, actually on the 4th trainer now, from Cox to Russell to D'Angelo to Chad Summers, now taking Instant Coffee. So an interesting cast for the Philip Island. That is race number 8 Saturday at Monmouth Park. Let's switch gears now and go north of the border. It's King's Plate Day at Woodbine. And again, we've got 4 stakes races for you to handicap. We will take a look at each of those 4 on the program. Also want to remind you again that $2 million first rewards points hit and split will be on races 6 through 10. That will include the Bold Venture Stakes, which goes as race number 7 on the card, Jeff. So that's where we get started with the first stakes race on the program. The Bold Venture, 6.5 furlong sprint. Field of 7 in here. 4 of them are coming off victories last time out, but none greater than Patches O'Houlihan's victory last time out.
Yeah, this is a popular horse. We started following him when he was going through the allowance ranks last year, and his most recent win and the
Pink Lloyd.
Pink Lloyd, yeah, that's right. Yeah. That was his first start of the year, so he comes back in winning form, earned a triple-digit 103 buyer number, by far a career top, and he's 7-5 in the morning. There's a horse in here that's going to get some play, and I was really intrigued by Play Me a Tune. Undefeated in 2 starts, both wins easily by a total of more than 16 lengths. I said, well, here's a horse that I really should consider maybe even beating the favorite with him. I went back and watched his video, and it was good, but it wasn't great. I mean, it was all right. I mean, he's done beating anybody. Patches O'Houlihan from dodgeball fame, I think, is going to continue his winning ways here. What a pro, and he loves the all-weather, and I just think he's going to outclass his field at a short price. Based on his last race, he's better than ever.
Yeah, he won that Pink Lloyd Stakes race, named for a horse who had a record, much like Patches O'Houlihan. Right. 8 for 10 lifetime, 7 for 8 at Woodbine on the main. Here's Patches O'Houlihan winning last out in that Pink Lloyd Stakes.
Riding souped up is there. Rat Portage is coming home pretty well. Patches O'Houlihan raced for home. Got out 4 or 5 in front. Rat Portage and Last American Exit trying to make inroads. But as they come inside the final 16th in the Pink Lloyd Stakes, look at the separation off the layoff. No doubt who's much the best. A fantastic win. Patches O'Houlihan, and how appropriate in the Pink Lloyd.
So it's Patches O'Houlihan, Jeff's top pick in that one. Race number 7, the Bold Venture. To the 8th we go, the King Edward Stakes. This is a prep for the Woodbine Mile, about a month, 5 weeks away from the Woodbine Mile. Now, King Edward, Grade 2 company here. 1-turn mile at Woodbine with the long run home to the finish line there on the grass course. And we've got another horse for course. I mean, we talked about Patches O'Houlihan with that Grade 7 for 8 record on the main at Woodbine. How about Filo di Ariana, 4 for 4 lifetime on the turf here at Woodbine, Jeff? He's going to be tough. An 8-year-old, but he's so lightly raced with just those 16 starts.
Yeah, I actually look at horses not so much how old they are, but how many races they've had.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned at this age, he's only had a handful of starts, really, relative to how many years he's been racing. But he hasn't missed a step. He's got 3 triple-digit Beyer numbers in his last 6 starts, including his most recent win, the Highlander, which was at 6. But from where he's drawn in a race, again, that lacks a lot of zip, he can stay out there and kind of pick his spot. He can dictate the race, go bust out and go, which is not normally his style. He's more of a stalker, but he might inherit the front end here. I mean, you look at this 1-turn mile, Jeremy, and where's the speed? There really isn't any.
There isn't. Yeah.
And he's the kind of horse, you look at his form, he's the kind of horse that if he does find a race or field that allows him to make the lead, he doesn't get beat. So I think Filo de Ariana is just, I mean, he's 4-5 on the morning line. He's expected to win. The question, though, is he going to run well enough and look good enough to give him a chance when the big money's on the line next time out? But what a nice horse he is, and I think he'll continue his winning ways.
You've got War Bomber in here who'll probably be fairly forward, maybe sitting second in this spot. Rent that first over trip to win this race a year ago, War Bomber. So defending champ trying to get a similar second stalking kind of trip and then press and pounce. But if Filo D'Ariano is as good as the last race in the Highlander, maybe they're running for second.
Forward press by Filo de Ariana. Right behind them, Oceanic is in third, placing a length and a half away, looking for Racing Rim up the inside. Witty is next, and behind them, Secret Reserve. Oceanic goes to the center of the track, and out in front, step forward, Filo de Ariana. Oceanic coming, and down the outside, Witty, Old Chestnut, then Secret Reserve. On the inside, step forward, on the outer, Filo de Ariana. Witty coming on, Oceanic back in the center. It is Filo de Ariana who's gone to the front. Filo de Ariana, the leader from step forward, down the outside, Witty, and Kazushi Kimura has the Highlander 1. Filo de Ariana 2.5 to Witty.
Let's go next at Woodbine to the Catch a Glimpse Stakes. It'll be race number 10 on the card. And again, with that, pick 5, races 6 through 10. These first 3 stakes races that we talk about are all part of that $2 million point hit and split with first bet. So the Bold Venture, the King Edward, the Catch a Glimpse, the final 3 legs of that early or middle pick 5, I should say, on races 6 through 10. Catch a Glimpse Stakes is a prep for the Grade 1 Natalma Stakes. And of course, that could send fillies towards the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf coming up at Del Mar a little bit later in the year. Catch a Glimpse, just 6.5 furlongs it again. So you've got a bigger field in this one, Jeff, where the outside post was advantageous in the last race. We talked about it, that 1-turn mile with the long run and a short field. The favorite's got an outside draw. That's a good thing. We've got a big field in this one in 6.5, so a shorter run into that first turn. Post could be a little bit important in this particular spot, and trip, obviously, when you get turf sprinters young like this, you're trying to work out a good trip. This race could be a little bit of chaos. How do you see it shaking out?
What you're talking about in terms of the pace situation and these lightly raced fillies, sometimes they improve overnight. So you got to be careful about that. But Bullet, number 7, has won both of her starts, like an extended late running type turf sprinter. So 6.5 should be perfect for her. And Bullet, to me, is a really good filly. I'm kind of surprised that her Beyer numbers are as large as I thought they'd be. Both races, 71, won a stakes first time out at Gulfstream. 71 came here and won a stakes here over the all-weather. Did that stylishly, back on turf again. And Warfront filly, they gave 400 and some odd thousand for as a yearling, so she's always been well regarded for Mark Casse, and perfect in 2 starts. I don't see any reason why she won't not only continue to win, but win impressively. Looks to me like the more ground, the better for her. So regardless of how the race shapes up or who's where, I think she'll find a way to continue her perfect string.
Some familiar veterans in the previous races we talked about at Woodbine, but these are lesser known. So let's give you a chance to be introduced perhaps for the first time to Bullet. Here's her win in the My Dear Stick.
Making ground, Ambitious Lass running on, but Bullet hands and heels here, Patrick Husbands, and goes up on the outside to go and hit the front. Carlisle Bay, the rail there, 4 in front of Supergirl, and Carlisle Bay trying to make a race of it, but Bullet opens up a length and a half in second place in Carlisle Bay, and now Bullet showing just how strong she is. Wins the My Dear by 3 or 4 lengths. Supergirl second, Carlisle Bay third, and
So it's Bullet from Mark Cassie. Also in that race is She's a Funky Drummer. Good name, but Fast Filly from the Midwest. She won at Hawthorne. She won the Prairie Gold Lassie for Larry Ravelli. Always have to respect Ravelli around the country. High percentage trainer, especially with these sprinters. David Cohen comes in to ride that one. Also picks up a mount in the King's Plate. So good work there from Cohen and his agent to pick up a call in the big race. And that's where we head next at Woodbine on Saturday. It's our express bet and first bet race of the week, the King's Plate. $1 million. They've been running this race since, I believe, 1860, the oldest race in North America. And look, there are 13 entered in here, but 7 go for the 2 big power brokers in Canadian racing right now. Trainer Kevin Attard's got 4 in this race. Mark Cassie has 3. They make up over 50% of the field. And, of course, Cassie's got the favorite in here, Jeff, My Boy Prince. He's done a little wrong. We talk about these horses for courses at Woodbine. No question. Sometimes it's about the competition, and some of these horses that run in North America, when they run in the U.S. and then go back to Canada, certainly have some class advantage. But My Boy Prince showed in the U.S. that he certainly fits, running 3rd in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. But at Woodbine, he's been almost unbeatable. 5 for 6 there lifetime on the main track with a second place finish. Can they beat the plate trial winner in the big one in the King's Plate?
I don't think so, but I'll defer to you because this is your race of the week and you've been on fire with those, and you've probably put more time into this than I have. I mean, it's easy to look at My Boy Prince and say, well, he's going to be tough to beat. Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
5 out of 6. But can he? Let me ask you this: can you beat him? And if so, with who? And if not, who do you hook him up with in the exotics?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to get beat, but he is heavily raced, right? I mean, he's had the 10 starts where some of these horses are more lightly raced. Not that he's worn down from running 10 times. I don't think that's a strenuous deal, but it's that we kind of know what his ceiling is after 10 starts, right? He's run enough that we know how good he is, and there's enough races on his resume to show he's a high 80s buyer horse. I'm not a speed figure guy or anything like that, but we've seen his races. We know what he can do. Some of the horses that are more lightly raced are stepping down into the Canadian fold ranks for the first time are interesting to me. Horses who, dropping in class, but not necessarily looking like it on paper. There's a horse in here named Pierre coming off seconds and thirds in back-to-back allowance races against open company, older males. I mean, now you're going against, horses just foaled in Canada and just 3-year-olds. I think Pierre's actually taken a class drop in here, but a lot of times with these horses, now they go to 126. So it's a big weight bump for a lot of these horses to go a mile and a quarter. So I think that kind of brings things back, right? I think it kind of levels the playing field with some of these horses that you might be tempted to take a shot on the class rise or stepping into stakes company, but a lot of them are picking up a lot of weight to run a mile and a quarter. And it seems like My Boy Prince will handle the distance after finishing up pretty well. His pedigree doesn't scream it, but I thought that the way he finished the plate trial after rearing at the start is a pretty good sign that he's going to handle the mile and quarter at least as good as anybody else in here. None of these horses are going to relish a mile and a quarter. Let's go back and take a look at that race in the plate trial, the local prep for this one when facing fellow 3-year-old Canadian breds. Here was My Boy Prince finishing up.
And well, Jokestar the inside, and as they turn, the favourite's no good thing. Friendly Ghost, Piper's Factor, My Boy Prince tapped up, Raffaroo down the outside, then Jokestar, My Boy Prince working overtime's gone to the front, Friendly Ghost the inside, then Raffaroo. It's taken a while, but My Boy Prince has got the lead and will win the plate trial and goes on to score by a length. Raffaroo a great second.
There's a little panic in the voice of Robert Geller there that the 1-4 favorite wasn't like just blowing them away, but there was also no whip used in there. That was all hands flagging a little bit. I think there was some confidence there by Savachi, the jockey, that they were okay and they were in good shape and they got there in time to win the third straight. I don't see them beating My Boy Prince in here. I'm going to use Pierre underneath in the exact. I think that horse has a big shot in there. Raffaroo, the horse who was second in the plate trial, still a maiden, but only has 2 starts. And this is a horse who's definitely bred to go long. He's by Hard Spun out of a Pleasantly Perfect mare. Of course, Breeders' Cup Classic on that Dam Sire winner. So I like Raffaroo for Stronach Stables as a shot, maybe as a maiden to come in and get a part of the exacta as well. And then Caitlin Her Greatness, filly in here named, I'm sure, for Caitlin Clark, the great basketball player. But Caitlin Her Greatness is coming off a second in the Woodbine Oaks. And you say a filly taking on the boys. Fillies out of the Woodbine Oaks have won this race, the King's Plate, for the last 10 years. They actually have a great great record in this particular spot, and she gets a weight allowance at 121. That 5 pounds, I think, is going to help over the course of a mile and a quarter. So, I've got My Boy Prince on top, and I'm going to use Pierre underneath at Rafa Roux and Caitlin or Greatness. But Pierre's going to be my main play underneath coming out of those open allowance races against older horses.
Good angle for sure. One thing I wanted to note about that last race, the plate trial, it did look like My Boy Prince was extended, but he broke awful in that race.
Yep.
He should have. I mean, that cost him. I thought cost him the race when he broke and went backwards, but he still won. And his previous races, he had won by a combined 10 lengths. And the other thing about this is a general rule, not necessarily a case with My Boy Prince, but you mentioned another good point. He's already had 10 starts. He's been raced pretty aggressively, but if he's running on grass or all weather, it doesn't take as much out of them, I think, than dirt. Dirt, you got to work through it most of the time, and I think most of these races have been a little less taxing than you would think on the program. He continues to maintain his form. He's fast on figures, and if he just doesn't make any mistakes, he's got that great tactical speed. Put him wherever you want him to be. No pace will affect him. He's a nice horse, and he's a horse that should be able to win a race like this.
My Boy Prince could give Mark Cassie his 4th win in the King's Plate and 2nd in a row. They won it with Paramount Prince last year, and they'll try to do it with My Boy Prince this year. Let's go to Saratoga on Saturday, where the Lake Placid and the Alabama both feature 3-year-old fillies, one on the turf, one on the dirt. We start on the grass. It's race number 9, the Lake Placid Stakes. Grade 2 company here, $200,000. Jeff, these 3-year-old filly restricted races, a lot of times you get the same horses running against each other on the turf over and over throughout the stakes scene. Some of these horses coming out of the Lake George Stakes last time out, but this is a pretty widespread group. You've got horses coming from everywhere in this particular spot. It's not just the same old horses recycled out of the Lake George from earlier in the meet. So I think it makes it an interesting handicapping race.
It's a good race, and I when you see these Euros show up here, you have to evaluate them because so many of them come over here and they're just better than our locals, but you don't know that unless you do the research. The good news is that on ExpressBet, if you want to go and watch these European races, which you need to do to evaluate these horses, the replays are up there. And all you do is go and type in the name of the horse or the date. Lots of ways to find it. And this horse, Le Rays, for French Fred filly, and now in Christophe Clement's farm, able to watch both of her last 2 races in Longchamp. Very impressive. I mean, this is a filly, a great filly. And she won a valuable handicap 2 races back at Longchamp, sprinting. And then she goes a mile, and she was like stone last at the top of the lane. And she just accelerated.
Right.
It was one going away. That was a legitimate black type race. The time form ratings are rising. She's right there with these horses. She's she just ran in June, so she's fit. Easy breezes here. And it's just 10-1. Better than that. I look at our horses being the local horses, and I say, there's some nice horses here. She feels pretty. There's nothing wrong with her, even though she got beat at odds on in her last start in the Belmont Oaks. But she's a good, solid horse. But I don't think she's any better than the Rays. I think 10-1 Rosario for Christophe Clement. That's my gamble, and if she gets any kind of racing luck, she's probably going to come from out of it, and probably will need a little help. But man, I'm telling you, if she gets room to rally, she is going to be heard from in the final furlong. I promise you that.
Spaladay, 1 of 3 in here for trainer Chad Brown. This is the More Than Ready out of Day at the Spa. We know how good she was, and she always just went freewheeling on the front end, and nobody could come and catch her for Chad. This filly, though, has no speed at all. Unlike her mother, she's going to be in the back trying to make a rally. Spaladay coming off a win in the Boiling Springs last time out at Monmouth. We'll get Frankie Dettori aboard. Dettori with a stakes win earlier this week. I think he teamed up with Clement to win a stakes race earlier this week at the Spa. So Spaladay for Chad Brown. We'll see if this daughter of Day at the Spa can have success at Saratoga like her mama. Let's go to the Alabama Stakes on Saturday. It's the feature race at Saratoga, 1.25 miles. Classic distance here for the 3-year-old fillies. You just don't get many that run this far in the filly ranks at all. Delaware handicap's not even 1.25 miles anymore, much less for the 3-year-old fillies. So this is really a unique and special kind of race. We do have a couple fillies in here who have been the 1.25 mile trip already. They were in maiden and allowance company. A winner, Just Basking, was a winner at 1.25 miles in April at Churchill Downs. And the other one who went 1.25 miles in here, going through the past performances, an allowance winner at Churchill at 1.25 miles, was Neon Icon, a part of this field. So a group of 8 in here, and the one name who's noticeably absent, Jeff, obviously, is Torpedo Anna. She is headed to the Travers Stakes in a couple weeks' time. So the 3-year-old filly ranks are kind of open for somebody else. Will it be one of these really good 2-year-old fillies from last year who just haven't been able to, upend Torpedo Anna at 3? But you've got some horses who won all the big races last year. The Goldenrod winner, Intricate's back in here. Chattelis won the big race, the Chandelier, last year in Southern California. And then you got Candide, who won the Alcibiades last year at Keeneland. So you got horses who won the Goldenrod, the Alcibiades, and the Chandelier. They just haven't been able to make any hay up against Torpedo Anna in the big ones.
True. Everything you say is true. And one more factor, as you pointed out, 1.25 miles is a whole different different situation for most of these. They don't usually breed fillies. I mean, they breed horses, and if they are fillies, they're not necessarily worried about 1.25 miles because there's so few opportunities for them. Nice to see Churchill riding some 1.25 mile races for maidens and for allowance horses. And Candide on paper looks like the right one, but I'm not sure she really wants to go 1.25 miles. I just have a feeling. But I can tell you who will and is, and that's Just Basking. This is this is what an Arrogate is supposed to be like. 1.25 miles at Saratoga. She looked great at Churchill Downs when she won 3 races back. A little flat with the pace situation was not to her liking. But I went back and watched the Iowa Oaks, and because I remember the race, and I remember loving her that day. She was not the favorite, and she just looked fantastic. And she earned a 90 buyer number, which is good enough to win this race. Since then, she's been training of the all-weather, and I think Ian Wilkes has got this. I think he had this race circled 5 minutes after he won at the Iowa Oaks. I said, okay, this is where we're going next. And she's here, and she, again, 5-1 in the morning line, and regardless of what the pace is going to be like, I think she's got the best kick, and I think at 1.25 miles, it will prove to be the winning edge that she has. Just Basking for me would probably, if I had to make one, be my best bet of the week.
Ooh, let's take a look then back at the Iowa Oaks. Her win for Ian Wilkes with Chris Landeros up that night. He'll be back again on Saturday.
Still been behind the leaders, and she may have room down at the fence now. Deviletta has to hold off Just Basking and Just Be Quiet. Just Basking sweeps on by to take over the lead. It's Just Basking in front and getting away now. Just Be Quiet second. Deviletta's had enough and Shimmering Allure. Just Basking, Chris Landeros to win the Iowa Oaks. They won.
One of the reasons I like her too, Jeff, is she's going this way, right? She's the horse who's improving at this point, not living off 2-year-old graded form and just trying to win a race in the absence of the big star. She's moving the right direction. She's moving on up, as they say, and Just Basking could be the one to beat in the Alabama. If she runs like Arrogate did at 1.25 miles at Saratoga, it's going to get ugly for the competition because he was absolutely awesome winning the Travers. Was that 2016?
You remember that Travers? It was Arrogate on pretty close to the lead, and here's Gunrunner moving up on the outside to challenge him, and Arrogate looking over. See ya. I mean, he made a really, really, really good colt look very average, and that was his coming out party. But one more thing I want to bring about them: Arrogate had prepped for the Travers by beating older horses in an allowance race at Del Mar. And I don't think anybody realized the quality of the allowance race that he had won, which is one of the reasons why I thought he had a good chance back with 3-year-olds. Well, you use the same angle in the Queen's Plate.
Yeah,
the horses that can run against older horses and drop back into 3-year-old Canadian bred horses. That's a massive handicapping factor.
Yeah, so and that's one to keep in mind there with the runner that we were talking, Pierre, the horse who's running in the in the King's Plate. So, yeah, we'll keep that in mind. Hopefully, look, we try to give some handicapping angles on this show, not just straight picks, too, because a lot of stuff, it doesn't matter if it's Tuesday at Belterra or Saturday at Belmont. A lot of handicapping angles are good no matter where you're playing. So we try to, apply some of that across the way, but we talk about these big headline races because that's where the attention is. The money are here coming up this weekend. Del Mar Oaks next that we will take a look at, our final of 8 stakes races, the handicap for the weekend. Del Mar Oaks is a grade 1 race, 1 mile and an eighth. They'll start in that infield chute, make that elbow left-hand turn. Almost 3 full turns when you kind of look at the way these races come off the chute at Del Mar. And inside is not a bad place to be when you have those 3-turn simulated kind of races. And I know the filly you like in here is right down on the fence, Jeff.
Ice Cream, You Scream is her name. And after winning a couple of races sprinting, I was not convinced that she had to be just as good routing as sprinting. Mm-hmm. She doesn't really look like a typical long-distance filly turf horse. She's built strong, like a sprinter, like a miler. So I kind of tried to beat her in the San Clemente, and she made the lead, which she figured too, coming out of sprints. But she was very impressive, even though the margin was only 3/4 of a length. She won with something in hand, and I liked her race. And now the key for me is you talk about various different handicapping factors that you look at. Well, I wanted to see how she came out of the race and how she breezed, because sometimes the first time they run long is the best time, then they kind of fill out. Well, let's take a look at this workout. This was not too long ago. That's Rock Emperor, who, by the way, is in front. And I love the way Ice Cream, You Scream switches off behind, didn't try to run up and make a race out of it, just kind of settled off the pace. And now she's going to go by just galloping. I mean, does this look like a fast sprinter to you? I mean, it looks to me like a long-distance turf horse. She's going to beat the older horse to the wire, coming home in good time, way out in the outside fence. That tells me that not only has she come out of that last race in fine fettle, but if for some reason the race comes up where she has to sit second or third, she'll be happy doing that.
Yeah.
So she's a really, really good filly. I expect her to win right back. Whiskey Decision is a good filly based on speed figure. She's right there with Ice Cream, You Scream. She's coming out here for the money run. She's won her last 3 after getting beat first time out. Sprinting, I'm sure they kind of gave her a little bit of a run that day. But visually, not only has she been impressive, but she's also earned numbers that are very close, maybe even a tad better than the favorite. So that's an interesting filly shipping in here, and I do think she's going to run really, really well. I love the 3-hole post. She's one of these horses that can lay in second flight and make a run. She's really, really good. This is a grade 1 race, and it's a legit grade 1 race. But I do think, even though 1 mile and 1/8 is a step up in trip for Ice Cream, You Scream, I think the way she breezed since that last race, the way she won over the course, the fact that she is undefeated in 3 starts, I give her the edge. But this is a good race, really is.
8 in the Del Mar Oaks, 2 shippers from out of town. You mentioned Whiskey Decision. The other one coming from Kentucky, Phil Bauer trained Buku, who won last year's Jessamine at Keeneland, but just hasn't been able to follow up anything around that form since then. Coming out of a 6th of the Belmont Oaks Invitational would be a surprise rebound here in this spot. You got Maduro, who was a horse who was, vying for favoritism with Ice Cream, You Scream last time out in the San Clemente. That was the first start since April for that one. Maybe needed the race. We'll see for Peter Urton. Had a wide draw that day, and the draw's pretty. It's starting to get out there a little bit in the 6-hole here in an 8-horse field. I like the inside in here. Ice Cream, You Scream always helps. Whiskey Decision from the 3. Those 2 should be the ones I think that settle the Del Mar Oaks. A couple reminders for you as we wrap up our handicapping for this weekend. It is opening day at Remington Park in Oklahoma City. They're going to run the Governor's Cup $100,000 stakes race tonight, so check that one out. Tomorrow at Gulfstream on Saturday, mandatory payout in the Rainbow Six. They're about $175,000 in the carryover going into Friday's card. Should be up over $200,000 going into Saturday with a mandatory payout on the 20-cent Rainbow Six and the Sheer Drama Stakes co-featured for Saturday's headlines at Gulfstream Park. And Sunday is closing day of the meet at Laurel Park, where they've got the All Brandy Stakes and the Find. Of course, they'll go to the Timonium Fair for a couple weeks and then back to Laurel Park for the meet in September. But again, final day of racing at Laurel Park on Saturday for a couple weeks before they head to Timonium. And again, one more reminder, be sure to check out check out Al Samaglia's handicapping video and picks coming up for Saturday night's Gold Cup and Saucer at Charlottetown, Red Shores. A really fun harness race, some big name runners going in that one. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that shakes out. It is an entertaining race call. You will not be more entertained. Larry Letterman, the great late race caller from Freehold, could entertain like no other in the harness game. This guy at Red Shores is almost in that category. He's really entertaining. So look forward to seeing how the big one at Red Shores, Charlottetown turns out. The Gold Cup and Saucer, I think it's the 65th running of that race on Prince Edward Island. Jeff, that wraps it up. I'll give you the final word for the weekend.
Good racing this weekend. I mean, for me, it's Subsanador and the Rays at Saratoga and Lake Placid, just basking in the Alabama. I mean, I got some plays that how it turns out remains to be seen, but I'll be in there with confidence, and we'll see if we can make some money and then go on from there.
All right, Jeff and I will return on Tuesday for our wrap-up of the weekend. The It's Official podcast each and every Tuesday. We do this podcast, the First Call podcast, each and every Friday. Thanks for joining us this week. Have a great weekend, everybody. Talk to you Tuesday.